Chapter 5, Methods Part 2. So the syntax for declaring a method are to start with the access modifier's public static, and then the return type, and that's the data type of the value being returned. Then the method name, it follows the same rules for naming variables. Then a set of parentheses, an open and a closed parenthesis, that contains your parameter list. What's the data type of the parameter? What's the parameter name? If there's more than one parameter, put a comma between them. Then we have an open brace and a closed brace, which denotes the beginning and the end of the method body. All the code in your method will go between that open and closed brace. Think about the main method, which each of us has written a number of times already. Note the method header and take a look at it in one of your programs. If you can pause now and take a look, and notice how all of our code had to go between the open brace and the closed brace of that main method. Here's an example of cubes.java, and you can get this from the textbook website. So we have public class cubes, and then public static void main string args, and then we call double result equals cube volume, passing it 2, and then the second time on line 9, double result 2 equals cube volume, passing it 10. What happens at line 8 is we call the method cube volume, so control is passed down to line 19 where we have cube volume. A variable named side length is created and it stores the value 2. That was what we passed it up at line 8. At line 21 we say 2 times 2 times 2, so it equals 8, so volume equals 8, and we return volume at line 22. Control transfers back up, and at line 8 that cube volume 2, that becomes 8. Essentially, that becomes the value that was returned. So now 8 is sitting over there on the right-hand side of the equal sign, and it gets stored in the variable to the left of the equal sign. So result 1 would then have 8. If we execute line 9, double result 2 equals cube volume 10. 10 is passed to side length. We create a variable called side length. We store 10 there. Then at line 21, we create a variable called volume, and we set it equal to 10 times 10 times 10, or 1,000. And then we return volume at line 22, so 1,000 gets returned. Up to line 9, 1,000 is on the right-hand side of the equal sign, and it is stored in result 2 that's on the left-hand side of the equal sign. Lines 10 and 11 then print those results. Method comments. We write Java doc comments above each method. They start with the slash star star. Note that's the forward slash. It's on the same key as the question mark. And we can type the purpose of the method first. We say, what does this method do? And then we add the @param comments that document or describe each parameter variable. So you'd have an @param for each parameter. And then finally an @return that describes the return value, ending with a star slash. This will help document the methods, and if we use the Java doc utility, it will automatically create some beautifully formatted comments for us, some help files for us. It's very nice. Parameter passing. Parameter variables receive the argument variables. Now, how do you remember which is which? I say you have to call a method before the method can run. Arguments A comes before parameters P in the alphabet, so you have to pass the arguments before they can be received by the parameters, and that seems to help me. So the arguments supply the values to the parameters, and they both must be of the same data type. So if you're passing 2 arguments, you must have 2 parameters to receive those arguments. The data type similarly must be, they must match, they must be compatible. The argument variable may be the contents of a variable. It can be a literal, such as 2 in the previous example. We sometimes call arguments actual parameters. You might see that terminology used. Actual parameter or argument, it means the same thing. Parameter variables are also called parameters, and they are declared inside the method header. They are initialized by the argument, and they are used as a variable inside the called method. They're also called the formal parameter. By the way, a word about parameters. Once we hit the end of the method, they're gone. Their lifetime is over. They are removed from memory. Java's garbage collector automatically reclaims the memory that they used, and so you can't access them anymore once the method is over. So here's some parameter passing steps. This kind of repeats what we did on the previous slide. Double result equals cube volume 2, so we're calling the method cube volume. It calls cube volume and passes 2 to side length. Side length executes 2 times 2 times 2, it becomes 8. That value gets stored in volume, and then volume returns that 8, and result 1 gets set equal to 8. It's a common error to try to modify arguments and have them be changed back up where the method was called. Java uses a pass by value. Only values are passed, not actual locations, unless we're using reference variables. And so we can't modify an argument inside a method. Well, we can, but it won't be changed in the original calling method. For example, if we have a variable inside the main method, double total equals 10, and then we call add tax, and we pass it total and 7.5, total equals 10, so we pass that value down to int add tax, and price becomes 10, rate becomes 7.5. We set double tax equals price times rate divided by 100, and then price equals price plus tax. That has no effect outside of the add tax method. So when we hit the return tax, the add tax method is over. Price that's declared inside the parameter list there goes away, and the tax value is returned. Note that the add tax method up inside the main method there on the first gray rectangle, it's not on the right hand side of an equal sign. So what do we do with the value that's returned? Absolutely nothing. It is lost forever. So methods can optionally return one value. If you don't want to return a value from a method, for the return type you put the keyword void. Void means this method has no return statement, it does not return anything. If you do want to return something, you have to put the return type to the left of the method name in the method header, and you have to have a return statement. The return statement does two things. It immediately terminates the method. It's kind of landing on go to jail in Monopoly. You go directly to jail, do not pass go, do not collect $200, go directly to jail. So the same is true. The return statement, it immediately terminates the method and passes the value back to the calling method. So, can you have multiple return statements? Yes, but only one is executed. So every branch must have a return statement. If you've got some logic going on, as we do in this cube volume method, we say in cube volume here, we say if side length is less than 0, so it's a negative number, we can't have negative volume. So we're just returning 0. If it's not less than 0, we're going to return side length times side length times side length. Notice that we don't have an else in this gray triangle because the return statement that's inside the if statement will immediately terminate the cube volume method. And so it won't get to return side length times side length times side length unless side length is greater than or equal to 0. It's a common error to miss a return statement. Make sure that all conditions are handled. So if you look at this example with sign, if x is less than 0, it's going to return negative 1. If x is greater than 0, it returns 1. But what if x equals 0? We didn't handle that. So you have to have a return statement for every possible condition.